A reminder to everyone that week one does not tell the tale of an entire season of fantasy football, nor does it tell the tale of an entire season of NFL football. But we're going to try to parse through it anyway. This is going to be the first edition of the Market Report podcast here at fantasypoints.com. For the 2023 season, my name is Joe Dolan. With me, Tom Brawley, and joining us on the Market Report podcast this year will be Mr. Graham Barfield. It's great to have this three-man booth of excellence and guys who have been beat up by a really rough week of fantasy football. A lot of unders out there this week, boys. And you know how I tell there's a lot of unders? When I go to like Yahoo Fantasy, and Yahoo Fantasy has the projected fantasy scores for the week, which, you know, they're fun to look at, but they're not really all that predictive. But when 90% of the league is red for going under their projection, that's the kind of week this was. Tom, let's start with you. How'd you do this week, my friend?
Oh, it was a rough one with the bets. My player props got absolutely slaughtered. And of course, like I had like 4 or 5 unders. I think I was the only person to like miss on all my unders. But my ATS stuff was pretty good. It was 3-1 with that, and got a chance to win our friends, or I don't even know, a friend, acquaintance, Big Ed's poll here tonight. If Buffalo covers the spread and the score is exactly 45 points. So I like my chances of that happening. But yeah, it was a tough week overall. As we said in the point spread show, probably look at unders and look at underdogs. And it was definitely an under and underdogs weekend.
Graham, what's up, man? How you did? How'd you do? How'd your fantasy do? How'd your props do? How'd your bets do? Week one, always a difficult one.
It is, yeah. It's good to do a three bros pod. This is gonna be a lot of fun during the season. We will commiserate over hopefully our good FFPC teams this year too. But I did okay. 2-2 on best bets. I did not go hard on props. I figured this is gonna be a gross week, and it was. I was talking to Scott on Friday for our DFS stream. I'm like, dude, this is going to be a really low scoring week. There's going to be one guy with like a score that you have to have in DFS. Yeah. And we both agreed it was Tyreek. And I mean, that was really, yeah, there was that. But yeah, it was basically like if you didn't have Tyreek or you didn't have like Cowboys defense, it was really, really tough to put a big score together.
Oh, yeah. So I had Tyreek. So I'm going to win in one of my 14-team leagues where I had Tyreek and literally nobody else reached 10 fantasy points, including Lamar Jackson. It was a rough week for even the quote unquote elite fantasy quarterbacks. You know, I think Jalen Hurts finished outside the top 12. Lamar finished outside the top 20. You know, Patrick Mahomes was, I believe, QB4, but it was pulling teeth to get there.
Trying to get to 100 yards right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of rough out there. We'll see what happens with Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers tonight. Hopefully there's a little bit more fireworks. But anyway, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through each game, and this is going to be kind of a facsimile of the article that we put up at fantasypoints.com, where we basically say this guy's up, this guy's down, and then we put a guy on the watch list. Like, all right, he's not really up or down, but there's something interesting going on here. And we write that up at fantasypoints.com, and we're just going to talk about the games, and we're going to go game by game. We're going to start with Detroit at Kansas City, which was a fun one on Thursday night, guys. And I think what the lesson learned here is even the best of the best need a big time weapon every now and again. Patrick Mahomes without Travis Kelce. I don't want to say he played poorly because I don't think he did. I think he did what he could. But the receiving situation in Kansas City, if there is no Kelce, is pretty dire out there.
Yeah, I wrote this game up already. I tend to write up the Thursday night game on Fridays. And yeah, we're obviously keeping an eye on Travis Kelce this week. Him for a return either in week 2 or week 3. And as we saw in that game, he's going to command a lot of targets because nobody really wanted the ball out of those receivers. Sky Moore couldn't get open. Kadarius Toney was targeted, but he was giving away 6 points to Brian Branch and running into his teammates on routes. So, yeah, Sky Moore kind of stash them on benches and see how it progresses here, but they can't be played right now. Also in this game, Isaiah Pacheco was Clyde Edwards-Helaire was involved, so something to continue to watch here. I kind of thought that might happen with Pacheco coming back from a labrum and returned really late in August, so not too surprising. I would expect his role to probably grow over September here. And on the Detroit side, I wrote up. He had a really strong showing with an 83% snap share. We know Jared Goff loves to throw in the short to intermediate area, so this could be something here, brewing here with Sam Laporta, the rookie tight end.
Yeah, Graham. Obviously, I don't know how much deeper we have to go into Kansas City. Last year, the funny part with Kansas City is it was kind of Travis Kelce or bust from a fantasy standpoint. And I think it's going to be the same thing. But for Detroit, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, that breakdown. What did you see? I think a lot of people were freaking out about Gibbs and his usage, but I was actually kind of encouraged, to be honest. Like, I thought he looked really good. Montgomery, with the game flow, probably got a few more carries than you might expect against Kansas City. But I actually was pretty into what Jahmyr Gibbs and how he looked and how he was used.
I agree. Yeah, I thought he looked the part, and the limited touches that he did get, he looked great. I mean, the contact balance, the agility, the quick start-stop ability that we all saw at Alabama was all there. He might have scored a touchdown. He got turf monstered inside the red zone. I think he might have gotten caught re-looking at it at the all-22. I think one of the safeties would have caught him, but he could have had a touchdown chance there. After the game, Dan Campbell came out and said, yeah, this was kind of just like we wanted to get his feet wet. His role is going to grow. And I believe him. I mean, it makes sense. David Montgomery's not going to play 75% of the snaps this whole season. Gibbs' role is going to grow. So if anybody's freaking out about Gibbs, they need to calm down. And my comp for Jahmyr Gibbs is like, he's got like, everybody gives him the Alvin Kamara comp. I'm going to go another way. He kind of reminds me of Chris Johnson. Like his explosiveness and his start-stop ability, his speed, man, is like, he's lightning quick. Like CJ2K had some elite deep speed. I don't think Gibbs is that fast in the open field, but man, they run similarly, very upright, but very quick, very agile. And Gibbs is going to be a playmaker in the NFL. It's going to happen.
Let's move on to the next game, which is Carolina and Atlanta. Atlanta 24, Carolina 10. But the only thing, Graham, anybody is going to talk about from this game is Kyle Pitts and Drake London combining for 2 catches on 4 targets. We'll talk about the backfield as well. I just cannot believe this is happening again. I just can't believe it.
Yeah, in 2023, it's insane. Look, I know Desmond Ritter's limited. I know, he's not the greatest quarterback of all time. I know he's not super accurate. But just to not even involve these 2 guys in your game plan is literal insanity. There's no other way to describe it. I mean, look, Falcons won the game, so we're sitting here and we're just complaining because of fantasy at the end of the day. But credit the Falcons defense for really stomping on the Panthers offense, I guess, and just kind of keeping this game gross. They didn't really have to throw if you want to like paint a rosier picture, but I mean, we knew this was a possibility that, the Falcons would not really involve these 2 guys. But I mean, we were all figuring at least a 20% target share for both. And then just to not even involve Drake London is just, it makes 0 sense. I've been, we try to make logic out of the illogical all the time. And I think that's really what it comes down to with Atlanta.
And if you talk to Arthur Smith, that he's going to be up there. Oh, we won the football game.
Well, of course.
So this is just going to help him dig his heels in further. The funny part for Kyle Pitts is in an awful week for tight ends, 2 for 44 is actually like, all right, I'll take it.
I'll take it. Yeah, exactly.
Dallas Goedert didn't catch a pass. Kelce and Andrews didn't play. So 2 for 44. Yeah, Tom.
My Pitts call is looking great.
Yeah, this backfield, Tom. I mean, look, this is where I can't really criticize Arthur Smith because Tyler Algier looked great. And so did Bijan Robinson. And right now, do we have 2 fantasy starters?
I think we probably do. I mean, we saw Algier get the 2 goal line opportunities. That's something to keep an eye on here moving forward. Both the 3-yard touchdown runs. Bijan scored the 11-yard touchdown pass on an 11-yard touchdown pass, and he saw the most targets in this offense. We're not targeting Pitts and Drake, but at least those targets are going towards Bijan Robinson with 6 targets. So he literally had a 33% target share in this game. So I think Algier usable. He's fringe waiver wire. I think he's like 55-60%. We don't rate up those guys for waiver wire, but I think he's usable as like a low end RB2 in good matchups.
On the flip side, not a ton to talk about, but Miles Sanders did get a bell cow workload, Graham. 18 carries, 6 targets in this game. That was important. He did lose a fumble, and he did go down often on first contact, but this is a guy who, in what was a pretty bad week for running backs, Miles Sanders was a guy you probably feel pretty good about starting going forward.
Yeah, Tom and I were talking on the Final Point show on Sunday, if we were concerned or not, if Miles Sanders is going to be a little limited, and he kind of was, 58% snap share. Chuba Hubbard was at 39%. But yeah, like you mentioned, 6 targets. Yeah, he saw no more than 3 in a game last year. And this was kind of like what you and I were talking about, Joe. It's like, okay, maybe Miles Sanders is just like he's an average runner, but if they're being serious about using him in a 3-down role and giving him a few extra targets, like that's enough to make him like a front end RB2. And man, he started going in the 6th, 7th round of a lot of drafts. I think at worst right now, he's just a volume RB2. But based on XFP, I mean, he was like a front end RB1 this week based on usage. Like you mentioned, he ran cold because he fumbled. Panthers offense stunk. They couldn't get in the red zone. But better days are ahead for Miles Sanders.
Tom, is Hayden Hurst the startable tight end right now?
Oh, yeah, I guess with the situation here, but I'm not banking on it. He brings no juice, and this is going to be an offense that's not going to score very many touchdowns. So, the more I think about it, he's like a middle tight end too. He's a waiver wire guy anyway. I put him down pretty decently on the list too. I'd rather have Luke Musgrave. I'd rather have maybe even Zach Ertz. Oh my God, he had 10 targets from Josh Dobbs.
Oh my!
But yeah, Hurst is he's like a 15% owned guy. So
somebody's got to catch
this receiving core is so bad. I almost feel bad for Bryce Young in this offense right now. DJ Chark might end up being a thing here because Adam Thielen might be dead. Jonathan Mingo looks at he's swimming right now. So this passing game is pretty rough right now.
Let's go to Baltimore hosting the Texans. This was a really just kind of bad game, and I think it's important to note that a lot of these like kind of elite quarterbacks who struggle have new coordinators, and that includes Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson put up, I think, 6 fantasy points in this game, led the Ravens in rushing. And Tom, we're going to start there. J.K. Dobbins blew out his Achilles, and I just feel terrible for this guy. This is a guy who's put his body on the line. He suffered his first major injury in a meaningless preseason game, and then he comes back and he lasts 10 touches in his in the final season of his contract, maybe the final season of his career, given how many awful injuries he suffered. But the Ravens have to move on some level. I know Justice Hill scored 2 touchdowns, but Gus Edwards looked like the better runner.
Yeah, this is going to be a tricky situation. If Justice Hill comes in and he gets the goal line carries too, you'd think that Gus Edwards, the bigger back, might be more of that option. But Justice Hill came in and cut both of those touchdowns. Justice Hill was kind of the preferred guy at first. He was kind of the number 2, and then as the game went along, as you're right, Joe, Gus Edwards played a little bit better. I'm giving Edwards the slight edge here when we're looking at the waiver wire, just because he has a longer track record of playing well, and Justice Hill, he literally scored his first 2 touchdowns since his rookie season in 2019. So not a long track record for him. I think they could be in the market here. We could see. We got Leonard Fournette out there. We got Kareem Hunt. Melvin Gordon's on their practice squad. I think we've seen this the last couple of years with this Baltimore Ravens backfield. It's been kind of a mess with J.K. Dobbins out of the mix. So, waiver wire talk here. I'm not shooting my load here. Blowing all my money here on my fab budget on this backfield. It's going to be a headache.
Graham, you were drafting Gus Edwards a ton in best ball. I did as well. Not predicting a J.K. Dobbins injury, but there was a point of this offseason where J.K. Dobbins was essentially holding out. That's why I was doing it. How are you approaching this waiver situation?
Like Tom, Gus Edwards is probably the 1A. They're going to sign somebody. They have to. Justice Hill had 8.
This is what Fournette and Kareem Hunt were waiting for.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And there's some, Justice Hill had 8 carries yesterday, 2 touchdowns, but his 8 carries went for 9 yards. I mean, long sample with Hill has shown us that he's a replacement level, if not worse, runner. Gus Edwards will get the early down stuff. I imagine he'll get some goal line work too, but like Tom was saying, I mean, this is probably just a mess.
I mean, likely catches one pass for 4 yards. Are you kidding me?
Their passing game was broken, man. I mean, it was literally broken. It's like the same thing with Kelsey. It was the worst timing because I think they were planning on having Andrews, obviously, and then it was just
Of course.
like, okay, we're gonna hold him out, and then the game plan's broken by then, you know?
Yeah, and then but they didn't need him because Houston couldn't score. Zay Flowers, 10 targets. Hello, welcome to the NFL, young fella. Looks like their number one receiver right now. I think Bateman was more of a, I don't want to say like part-time player because that insinuates that he was on the field for like 30% of the snaps. I think it was more than that. But Zay Flowers and Beckham are the starters here. Flipping over to Houston, CJ Stroud was under as predicted in the mismatch report. CJ Stroud was under siege in the entire game. He was sacked 5 times. Every time I looked up, he was under pressure. Nico Collins, 11 targets. Robert Woods, 10 targets. Dameon Pierce, 11 carries, and he looked far better, Graham, than Devin Singletary did, who had 15 yards on 7 carries. Pierce also got 3 targets, but again, not a whole lot of fantasy production here for Pierce. I think he had 6.7 PPR points. He got a bell cow-ish role, but it didn't really translate behind an offensive line that is absolutely decimated right now.
Yeah, it's actually a little concerning for him. Only a 28% route share. It means he was only on the field for 28% of the Texans' pass plays. He, like you mentioned, he did get 3 targets when he was out there. I was expecting that to be a lot higher. I wanted that to be a lot higher for him this season.
I do think game situation might have.
Yeah.
A lot of the Mike Boone was playing, when it was kind of out of reach. I think but this could be a thing with him though. This Texans team's gonna be pretty shitty this year, so they could be getting blown out, and so it's something to watch. But I do think the game situation played a little bit into this.
For sure. Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, Devin Singletary also got 7 carries, but like you mentioned, Joe, he did not look particularly inspiring on them.
No. Cincinnati at Cleveland. Cleveland wins this one 24-3 in sloppy conditions, and this game never really took off. I mean, Joe Burrow doesn't practice. So let's start with Cincinnati, Tom. This is a game for Cincinnati. Look, I think you might remember Cincinnati got off to a really slow start last year. Like, I think.
I gave out a bet on Sunday morning. I'm like, we're fading the Bengals here. They start out slow. We talked about on the Point Spread show. Yeah. Zach Taylor comes from the Sean McVay school. They don't play anybody in the preseason, and I think they're 1-7. They lost to the Steelers last year in the season opener. They lost to the Cooper Rush Cowboys. Touchdown favorites in both of those games to start last year. Zach Taylor was like 1-7 straight up coming in the first 2 weeks of the season. So this, it wasn't predictable, but there were little breadcrumbs there that this could be a slow start. And Joe Burrow's coming back off of calf injury. So honestly, this is one of those, we'll say this a bunch on this show. I think it's just a burn the tape.
Ignoring it.
Yeah. It's we're going to go back to Burrow. We're going to go back to Higgins. Higgins, it was 8 targets and no catch. It was just a ugly overall game.
It was a bad game.
Yep.
And it probably would have been a little better if it wasn't sloppy conditions, but it was a bad football game. Joe Mixon, true bell cow here. Which again, we'll say this a lot on this show. True bell cow, and it didn't translate to massive fantasy production because of sloppy conditions. Graham, I posited this in our group chat. I kind of said, like, it feels like, and Tom, you just alluded to it. It feels like, as frustrating as this is for fantasy and as frustrating as it is for fans, it feels like coaches would rather start 0-1, 0-2 than lose a key player in the preseason.
Yeah, logically, it makes a lot of sense. And, I think I shot back and I was like, not only that, we've got the extra week now. So, there's less incentive to be really, really sharp week 1. You have an extra game to kind of make it up. And you're going right back to Bengals. They're going to be completely fine week 2. I got to say, Jamar Chase, 9 targets, T. Higgins, 8 targets, 0 for 0. You got to go right back to T. Higgins with 8 targets. I mean, that is unbelievable. 8 targets from Burrow and catches 0 passes.
Yeah, Joe, I don't know, if you have a good backup option, maybe you wait and see next week on Burrow, but he's going to be fine. We know he's going to be fine. I'm a little bit more concerned with Deshaun Watson, Graham, on the flip side. And the only reason is we haven't seen Deshaun Watson play good football in coming up on 3 years now.
Yeah, it's the truth. And, watching that game yesterday, he was skipping passes. He was skipping passes, man. I mean, he threw a couple short To open receivers, he had one to Elijah Moore that he was open. He had one where Cooper was open. The accuracy was not there. You can say, okay, it was raining, fine. He's played in a lot of bad weather games, but you're right. I mean, we're going on a long time where he hasn't thrown the ball well. I will say, and this was kind of like the whole point why I was buying back in for fantasy is, he's scrambling more. We saw it yesterday that kind of bailed him out. Kevin Stefanski was saying all offseason he wants Watson to move more, and that's what we saw yesterday. Zone read stuff with Nick Chubb, that'll be nice all season too. So, Watson being increasing his scrambling will really help. But yeah, I think for apex ceiling, Watson, it's looking more and more likely we're not going to get the same top 5 quarterback he once was.
Nick Chubb, this is one of the running backs who actually did something for fantasy. 18 carries for 106 yards, 4 targets, 4 receptions for Nick Chubb. If he's catching 2 to 4 passes a week, hello. And also of note, Jerome Ford looked pretty terrible. 15 carries for 36 yards, including a long of 17. So he got 19 yards on his other 14 carries, and he lost the fumble. So Nick Chubb's going to be a bell cow here. Anything you hope for fantasy. I mean, Nick Chubb could be, well,
he could be the guy.
I mean,
he could be, maybe not if McCaffrey, but yeah, he could be Eckler. That RB1 and Eckler, but Eckler was 50-50 with Joshua Kelly. So something to keep on. We'll get onto that later, but and the only reason Ford really got a lot of run is because, the Bengals had 3 points and weren't even keeping it close here and competitive. So I don't know if he'll be like a 90% guy, but he could easily get in that 70 to 80% range, most weeks.
I just pulled it up in the data suite. First half, Nick Chubb 60% snap share, Jerome Ford 32%. So I mean, that's a huge boost for Chubb. He was at 50% last year, up anywhere up to 60. That's huge. It's nice.
Jacksonville at Indianapolis. The Jags take this one 31-21. Graham, I'm going to start with you with your Duval Jags. Travis Etienne is the big story for me. He didn't catch more than 3 passes in a game last year. He catches 5 in this one to go with 18 carries. Moreover, Tank Bigsby had a Kadarius Toney level bad game in this one. So Travis Etienne, let's put him up because I think maybe I overthought. I didn't draft Etienne a lot. Maybe I overthought this. I think Bigsby will get more involved as the season goes along, but Etienne looked really good in this game.
Yes, he did. And the Colts have a really good front 7. They're terrible, obviously, in the back end. I mean, Calvin Ridley proved that. He just absolutely shredded them. But yeah, man, Etienne, not only did he look great, not only did he get an amazing workload, but like you said, Bigsby really, really struggled in short yardage. He had a ball clang off his helmet that went up in the air for a pick. You obviously have the mental miscue with the fumble on Trevor Lawrence's play. I think we were all kind of on this agreement that Etienne is like way better than Tank Bigsby, and people kind of took it a little too far. But I mean, Etienne, man, he is looking really, really good. And it's almost like second-year players that were drafted in the first round and are extremely talented tend to ball out on good offenses in the second year. So yeah, I think a lot of people overthought Etienne. He was a really good 4th-round pick, man. Really good 4th-round pick.
Now, at receiver, one of the preseason hype masters, Tom, Calvin Ridley, comes out and follows through on it. 8 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown, 11 targets for Calvin Ridley. I want to get both of y'all's opinion on this. I was talking to Paul Kelly on the SiriusXM Game Day show, and I said, look, everybody's going to freak out about Christian Kirk. And look, rightfully so. He had 1 catch for 9 yards after catching 90 passes last year. I do wonder, Tom, if this is a little bit similar to last year's Eagles opener when Jalen Hurts had this shiny new toy in A.J. Brown, and A.J. Brown's out there going ham. Meanwhile, Devontae Smith doesn't catch a pass in week 1 last year. Could you see something like that happening? And then Lawrence coming back next week and saying, all right, I wanted to get Calvin going, but we're going to get Christian going this week. What do you think? Or are you a little more down on Kirk?
No, I'm legitimately concerned here. We saw it in the preseason. They were taking him off the field when they were going 2 wide receiver sets, and in looking at the snap count, Zay Jones was in snap share. He was up at 89% of the snaps. Calvin Ridley was at 81, and Christian Kirk was at 60%. That's very concerning to me. We know Doug, this is going to be a primary 11 personnel team, but Doug does have some 2 tight end back, that's in his background too. So I think we might be living with a Kirk like sitting at a 55 to 65, 70% snap share moving forward. And that, just takes away opportunities for him to get targets and catches. So I don't think this is the same type of situation here. I'm legitimately concerned here. He's down for me this week.
What do you think, Graham?
Yeah, same. Yeah, it's a legit concern, the snap share. I think it'll come up. They play the Chiefs next week. Yep. That's going to be a game where they're going to have to, press. We'll see. If Kirk is not on the field like more than 75% route share next week, then I'm going to press the panic button. But for now, he's definitely down.
Let's move on. Oh, let's talk about the Colts. First and foremost, I benched Anthony Richardson where I had him. I have him in a league where I benched him for Aaron Rodgers. I'm still okay with that. I'm freaking kicking myself. In another league, I'd be lined up for a win, except I benched him for Danny freaking Dimes. I just wanted to see it first, and I saw it. I thought he looked pretty good. I mean, there were definitely some rookie moments for Richardson, but 10 carries for 40 yards. I don't know what else. Like Michael Pittman had a strong game. He's startable, obviously. The only receiver who's startable here. The Colts, Graham, might have effed around and found out about the RBs don't matter thing, because Deion Jackson was abominable in this game.
He is not he's not an NFL back. Jonathan Taylor, week 5, I think they've probably got that circled in their calendar. Anthony Richardson has like a reminder in his calendar for JT coming back. He's supposed to. There was a Schefter report that came out early Sunday morning.
I'm going to add that we have a little market report article document here. I'm putting that in there.
Putting JT in there. Now,
I was going to mention that because Schefter was like, he's healthy. He could have passed a physical if he needed to today. And I mean, if that's the case, man.
Here's the tweet. It is quote, going to pass his physical and could pass it today, per source. Taylor is planning to be ready to play as early as week 5 when he is eligible to come off the PUP list. Now, it doesn't say eligible to play for the Colts, which is like, because I don't know, I'm sure that trade request is still outstanding, but you could tell Jonathan Taylor's agent just took that box score and is printing it out and faxing it to Jim Irsay this morning.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't even know Jake Funk was on the roster. That was news to me whenever I saw him get 2 carries. I saw Evan Hall did have picked up a knee injury. So in the short term here, I put Zach Moss relatively high on the list here. Sounds like he was getting close to a return last week. I don't know if he was cleared for contact. That's going to be something to watch here. We're not playing any of these backs if it's not Zach Moss for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah. Tampa Bay 20, Minnesota 17. Looking at the box score and honestly looking at the game on television, watching, I have no idea how Minnesota lost this game. Like it's like the last year, I think there was a bunch of, I have no idea how Minnesota won this game. This year, I have no idea how Minnesota lost this game, and I think that's going to be maybe a recurring
all
trend.
Evens out.
Tom, they were weren't they 8-0 in one-score games last year, Tom, or something like that? 9-0. Yeah,
13-0 in one possession games, I believe,
and
then they lost the one possession game against the Giants in the playoffs, and
that's right.
They lose the first game of the season in a one possession game. So it all evens out in the end.
Hashtag regression.
I'm just going to mention a couple of things for the Vikings because they're very similar to what they were last year. Addison kind of slides right into the Thielen role. He's a startable wide receiver 3. Alexander Mattison had a borderline bell cow role in this game. They struggled to run the football, but Mattison was way better than Ty Chandler, who had 3 carries for 0 yards in this one. But I want to flip over to Tampa Bay because, look, Baker is Baker, Graham.
Yep.
But he threw the ball 34 times. Evans and Godwin were targeted on 16 of them.
Yeah, and like we predicted, Brian Flores blitzed the absolute crap out of Baker in that game. Just watching it, there was an extra guy coming at Baker almost every single drop back. I'll look at the blitz numbers when we have the games charted, but he got the ball out quick to Evans and Godwin, and that's all we really want. It's like, okay, I know Evans isn't going to drop the 8 for 152 hammers probably anymore, but like, this works. This is a great spot. Vikings outside corners are not going to be very good. To me, though, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that Evans is the guy over Godwin. He still looks fantastic. He could get traded by midseason at this point with how good he looks. I want to kick it to you guys, though. What do you guys think about Rashad Rashad White. Like, he got the huge workload, but didn't
He
really
didn't go anywhere.
he didn't do much
And then
with it at all.
Sean Tucker came in and played more in the
Yeah,
second
that was-
half, and he didn't go anywhere.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, that
exactly.
was the one thing that would caught my eye, that Tucker was getting. It was in the fourth quarter run. I add him to the waiver wire just because I don't know if it was maybe injury related. I just thought it was interesting that we're in this tight game here. We've used Rashad White all game long, and
Yeah.
then the fourth quarter, it's nut cutting time, and Sean Tucker is out there and Rashad White is on the bench. So
Tom, I do wonder if White picked up a
That's what I'm wondering.
very minor injury, because I remember seeing a tweet maybe from a Bucks writer during the game that he was like on the sideline working on something. So it's
Okay.
possible.
Yeah, because I'm always looking at like post game injury stuff, and there really wasn't anything on White that I could find.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
we'll
there's
see.
probably
Just to look
20,
for here.
20 occasions during a game where a guy picks up an injury, but it's not severe enough to be reported.
Exactly.
So, but like, here's the thing about Rashad White for fantasy: startable. He had 19 touches in this game. He didn't go anywhere with those 19 touches. That, we've mentioned that with multiple running backs though after week 1, where they got this big workload and didn't really do anything with it. I think it is concerning because he was one of the least efficient backs in the NFL last year. Certainly his week 1 performance is going to be among the least efficient this year, but it's not like Sean Tucker came in there and set the world on fire. They couldn't run the ball. So, we'll
the 19 touches was nice. I'm a little concerned with just the 2 targets though. That's what, because that's
I thought
was
Baker was
kind of
gonna
his
check it down.
appeal. I thought he would be good for 3 or 4 catches each week, and just the 2 targets. We know Baker, he hasn't been afraid to target running backs.
He's been a big check down guy.
Yeah, so that's kind of my bigger concern here. The 2 targets in this game.
Tennessee at New Orleans, 16-15. New Orleans wins this one. Tom, if Ryan Tannehill could throw a halfway accurate ball, Chigakonkwo would still be running.
Oh,
That was brutal.
yeah, that was
Brutal.
that was a tough one. That was a perfectly designed,
Great play call.
They caught him off guard.
Flea flicker, yeah.
Little wheel route with the flea flicker, and just put a little loft on the ball and let him run under it. 45, 50-yard touchdown score, and he comes through, and instead it gets blanked here with just the 2 targets. A little concerning. This offense, it's going to go. I mean, we kind of figured everywhere DeAndre Hopkins goes, the passing game runs through him, and no different here with 13 targets right away. I think he's basically for his career averaging up over 10 targets a game. So nothing's changed here in Tennessee, at least in week 1.
One of these years, you'll fade Derrick Henry and be right. But there he goes again. I mean, 118 yards from 19 yards from scrimmage, even with Tannehill. Tannehill was 16 of 34 with 3 picks in this game, guys. So if you're a Chigakonkwo stan like me, you can't just look at the box. I mean, you can. He had 2 targets, but man, he should have had a touchdown. If I'm not mistaken, I think his other target was an end zone target as well. But I might be mistaken there. But nonetheless, just like Dallas Goedert, just like Travis Kelce, just like Mark Andrews, you got a goose egg from Chig this week.
The biggest takeaway from Chig and the biggest positive sign I can point to, 83% snap share.
Okay,
I mean, last year,
really good.
Dude, he didn't have a snap share above 65% last year. So, like, he's the guy. Horrible matchup. Tommy, you and I were talking about this on Sunday.
Against the Saints.
This is a brutal matchup. Saints have always been so good against tight ends. So, I'm going right back to Chig.
Yeah, that was one thing on the show with John on Sunday. We kind of cautioned against him. We told people to go elsewhere for at least this week. And but I'm right there with you. Just looking at it from PFF here from Nathan Janke. It's 30 routes run on 40 dropbacks. So we'll get our fantasy points data stats in the near future. But that is extremely positive here. If he gets dropped this week, which he's probably going to be a popular drop on the waiver wire, I would be picking him up right away this week.
New Orleans, very condensed, which I really like. Jamal Williams had 18 carries. We knew this was a brutal matchup. The Titans were the best run defense in the NFL last year. The receiving workload, very encouraging in my mind, Graham. 10 targets for Olave. Okay, he was drafted to do that. 8 targets for Michael Thomas. Not as much as Olave, but okay, he was drafted to do that. Rashid Shaheed, 6 targets, 5 for 89 and a touchdown. Rashid Shaheed was my most drafted wide receiver through August 1st in best ball.
Nice.
Like this guy is now usable in season-long leagues, and I wasn't sure I was going to get there for him, but Rashid Shaheed is legitimate, Graham. This guy is really good.
Yeah, they're all good, and Carr looked great. I mean, Carr was probably
with the exception
best
of the red
quarterback in the early
zone
window. Yeah,
with the
true.
exception of the red zone, which
Yeah,
is
they
a
struggled.
recurring problem, by the way, for him.
Yeah, they struggled. But man, Carr was good. I got to say, Michael Thomas is not washed, guys. The dude looked like Michael Thomas. Chris Olave will be the wide receiver one here, but there's going to be weeks where Michael Thomas, scores, 7 for 80 and 2 touchdowns, and Chris Olave, doesn't really do much in the box score. But yeah, overarching theme, man, Saints passing offense looks ready to go. I just put all of them up. I'm not sure how I'm going to end up writing all of this. But I mean, really, Saints pass game looked great. Yeah. And I think you can start Olave and Thomas with confidence moving forward. And Shaheed is probably a really good depth wide receiver 4 and has contingent upside if Thomas misses more time.
I won a Juwan Johnson yardage over prop, and I won it on 1 catch because he had a 27-yard reception. He also had 5 targets. So Juwan Johnson is certainly a rosterable tight end. Sorry, Tom. San Francisco at Pittsburgh. 30-7. San Francisco boat raced them. Kenny Pickett was atrocious in this game. Tom, I texted our Yinzer group chat, and I said, well, you got to give Pickett a little bit of credit for that last drive before halftime. You were like, no, I don't.
So he was awful on that drive, too. Deontay Johnson was wide open on a little slant, threw it way behind him. The pass to Anthony McFarland on 4th and 3 was goddamn terrible, too. He was lucky McFarland made a good play on it and converted the first down. So, yeah, I wasn't giving him even credit for that drive. So, it is just one game. I'm not going to go completely overboard.
It was a horrible matchup.
It was, San Francisco has the best defense in the league, and they were ready to play. Yeah, Bosa was back. So, I'm not going to hit the complete panic button here, right out of the gates. But Deontay Johnson, that looked like a pretty severe hamstring injury. We'll get more information on it next. I think Tomlin does his noon press conference on Tuesdays, so we'll probably get more information then. But I mean, from the looks of it, that looks like it has the potential to be an IR stint. Yeah. We'll see the full extent, but it looked like somebody sniper shot him right in the back of the leg there, and he was in big pain. So Calvin Austin and Allen Robinson time. So we're concerned about guys creating separation in this passing game without Deontay Johnson, and we also have Pat
Deontay should have had a huge first half, by the way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely massive.
Yeah.
So
he was always open. He's always open. It is insane. Deontay is always open. And
the answer to Najee Harris versus Jaylen Warren was no, by the way. And again, the matchup played into that. I mean, Najee actually looked pretty spry, I thought. But I mean, he had 8 touches. What are you going to evaluate for? Jaylen Warren had 5 catches for 12 yards.
Yeah, and looking at it a little more, first half snaps, Najee was at 63%, Warren was at 30%. Obviously, this game was over pretty much in the first half. Yeah. So if you want to paint a rosier picture for Najee, you could say, okay, when the game was kind of in hand, it was Najee, but yeah,
they scored right before halftime, and then McCaffrey housed one on the first half of the second drive, and that's when the game was over. Yeah. San Francisco, not a whole lot. Like, look who produced. Everybody you want to produce. Ayuk had 8 targets. Ayuk looks phenomenal. John's already going to victory lap that one enough for us, so we can Scott will victory lap that one enough for us, so we don't have to do it on this show. McCaffrey looked great. Deebo Samuel looked great. Deebo had 7 touches, including 2 rush attempts. Kittle only caught 3 passes, but he had 6 targets. And in this week for tight ends, I guess we'll take the 3 catches and say, well, at least it wasn't Dallas Goedert. At least it wasn't Mark Andrews. So,
I will say on Kittle, though, I mean, we were low on him all summer here, and I feel like he's the low man here on the totem pole. Brandon Ayuk looks like he's ready to ascend to another tier of wide receiver. We know what Deebo Samuel can do. Christian McCaffrey on that 65-yard touchdown run. So I'd feel a little bit worried if I was Kittle, even if I was a Kittle owner, even with the 6 targets this week.
This is the 6th game we've seen Purdy, McCaffrey, Ayuk, and Deebo all play, and Kittle has always been the 4th guy. He has been behind those other 3.
He's a mid tight end 1. That's what he is. Because he's so talented, because he's so gifted, you have to still consider and like there's only so few weekly startable tight ends. Because Kittle's so talented, he's basically a weekly starter, and you just hope you catch one of the blow up weeks for him.
Basically.
The one thing I will say, first and foremost, Purdy can play. I'm not trying to argue against that. That boy's got some turnover luck regression coming though.
Yeah.
He had the butt recovery here. He did lose a fumble. He had a couple of passes that should have been picked off. And look, I think Kyle Shanahan will live with that. Just keep that in mind that the turnover luck is going to turn around at some point for him.
Yeah, I will say though, as just watching, both second-year quarterbacks, Purdy, he's definitely fearless. He's not. Yeah. He's willing to let it, uncork it, and I think
dude, he hangs in the pocket, man.
Yes,
he
he's got stones. He has pocket presence too. There was a couple times where he felt the defender on his backside, and he spun outside the pocket and made a play. So Purdy might be the better quarterback between these two. Obviously, a long way to go, but he was very impressive here, at least in week 1.
Washington and Arizona. We had a couple of backs in this game who got bell cow usage and didn't do a whole lot with it. Are you sensing a theme here, guys? Washington, Brian Robinson, 19 carries. No other commander had more than 3. Antonio Gibson lost another fumble in this game. Brian Robinson also had 2 targets. He caught one for a touchdown, which was a big help. On the flip side, James Conner, 14 carries, 5 targets. He had 12 fantasy points on 14 carries and 5 targets. But both of these guys, Tom, startable RB2s until further notice.
Yeah, it was weird. Chris Rodriguez got a carry real early in the game, and then ended up just playing 3 snaps the rest of the way. That was kind of weird. But yeah, I have concerns. This Commanders offensive line, we knew this was going to be a potentially weak spot for this offense. It's the weakest spot on this offense, and Howell was under pressure the entire game.
Against Arizona.
Yes, against Arizona. He took 6 sacks. Robinson, 3.1 yards per carry. He's going to be he's probably going to be a sub 4 yards a carry. We're going to need a lot of volume out of him. He caught that first pass early in the game for the touchdown, and just one other target the rest of the way. So we like the usage out of Robinson. Gibson is tripping up already. But yeah, it's going to be ugly, inefficient RB2 usage here.
Jahan Dotson, 7 targets. Terry McLaurin, just 4. McLaurin was coming off the injury. Curtis Samuel led this team in receiving. I think I highlighted that in the mismatch report, by the way. Pat myself on the back. Wish I used him in DFS.
Very nice.
I did not. Logan Thomas, 8 targets. Scott just perked up somewhere, wherever he is. On the flip side, I mean, Josh Dobbs, 21 to 30. I mean, he's doing a thankless job here, guys.
Yeah, what do you want him to do? I mean, he was installed a couple weeks, before the season starts. Marquise Brown might be gimpy. His number 1 target was Zach Ertz, who I don't know if you guys watched much of this game. He looked like he couldn't move. I'm wondering if they want to trade him. I really don't know what's going on there.
They showcased him.
I was shocked that he was 77% snap share in this game. I thought they would be more of a 50-50 with Trey McBride.
I don't know. Ertz looks toast to me.
But
let's move Green on. Bay at Chicago. Green Bay wins this one 38-20. Jordan Love, man. Oh my God. Packers fans are on another plane right now because Jordan Love played circles around Justin Fields in this game.
Yeah,
he did. Yes, he did.
Particularly close either.
It was not. Yeah. I mean, watching the game, I don't know what the Bears were thinking. I mean, their whole game plan was screen plays, but I mean, it without Christian Watson, without Romeo Doubs playing a full-time snap share, I mean, Love looked good, man. Look, the game plan was great. They ran it well. Like this offense is going to look good.
No Christian Watson, that's the thing.
I know. I know.
Dobbs, by the way, this guy's a pretty good little receiver. I know we hyped him last year. He was a 4th-round rookie who caught 40 passes and scored 3 touchdowns. You tell any team, hey, that receiver you drafted on day 3 this year is going to catch 40 passes and score 3 touchdowns this year. They take that. So Dobbs is a pretty good player. They like him in the red zone. He scored twice. Aaron Jones is a star. He picked up a hamstring injury, something to monitor. And it is something to monitor because A.J. Dillon was atrocious in this game.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't hit the panic button just yet, but yeah, we want to see what Aaron Jones's availability here is.
I think
That was a lopsided game whenever he left. He scored the long touchdown and by multiple scores at that point. Might have even been up 3 scores at that point. So no need to rush him back into the lineup. But yeah, we'll see about his availability. I don't think we'll see a lot of Patrick Taylor. It's going to be, Dillon has RB1 potential if Jones is out a week or two.
Luke Musgrave, I think he answered the bell, 3 for 50 in his first NFL game on 4 targets.
Should have
had a touchdown.
Love just underthrew him, and he lost his.
Yeah.
Flipping over to the Bears again. I want to go back to what I said at the beginning of the podcast. You could not. You can't panic about a week 1 game. Like so many of these teams. Eventually, Justin Fields has to do something, right? Like as passer, I saw the Bears beat writer threw up his next gen stats chart. I think he was 2 of 4 passing on anything over 10 air yards, including an interception.
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at. Their game plan was just so conservative, and it was just all like short routes and then check it down to the
Brian
backs.
Windhorst. Let me do the Brian Windhorst.
Why
was their game plan so conservative?
I get it, but man, I mean, like, you gotta take some shots. Like they got DJ Moore who can get downfield. They've got Mooney who can get downfield. I mean, that ball that Fields threw to Mooney for the touchdown was a nice ball. I get it. Look, Fields' accuracy was horrible last year. I mean, it was probably not going to be charted very well in this game, but they got to try. You got to try to throw it. You have to.
I think they will, and then they have to figure out
what
their
next,
future is. DJ, you bring in DJ Moore, you trade the number 1 pick, and he has 2 targets for 25 yards. I mean, you can't tell me that the Bears weren't drawing up some design stuff for DJ Moore.
Here's my thing. Like, going back to their game plan last year, week 1, this was the same thing Luke Getsy did then. It was a super uber conservative game plan, and then they eventually opened it up. I'm crossing my fingers that's the hope here, but like, man, I really was hoping we'd see a little bit more. And it's condensed game plan, but also Fields was really bad. Like, I don't want to make any excuses here.
Yeah. Interesting is Rashawn Johnson, 5 carries for 20 yards and a touchdown, 6 for 35 receiving, almost all of that when the game was out of hand. Tom, did you see anything here? I mean, Khalil Herbert was getting a lot of usage early. He was their leading receiver for a while in this game, but Rashawn Johnson comes in late and actually looks halfway decent.
Yeah, it's tough to decipher this. I still think Herbert is a RB2 at this point. Deontay Foreman is probably going to mix in here, but I did add Rashawn Johnson to the waiver wire as kind of a guy to stash away, even though it was garbage time and they weren't playing. I thought he was impressive, and we knew coming into this year that there was a potential that he could be the best passing back. He excelled in pass protection, and he showed well as a receiver here. So there's probably some room for his role to grow here. So I still think Herbert's the guy, but I think Rashawn Johnson is a nice little stash here if you're looking for a potential upside, rookie running back on your bench.
I'm going to have you guys help me with this one. The Raiders and the Broncos. I didn't see a ton of this game, but the Raiders beat the Broncos 17-16. T-Bro, was it same old Russ to you?
So this is when I'm writing up the waiver wire at 4:00. So I don't get to watch these games too closely, but it doesn't look like it. I mean, this is a matchup that he torched last year in 2 chances, and I mean, he completed a high number of his 27 of 34, but only for 177 yards. So I don't know if I want to kill him for the first game with a new coordinator and new coach.
I'm definitely not, because I mean his top receiver was Samaje Perine. He was throwing to Brandon Johnson and Lil Jordan Humphrey out there, like
Greg Dulcich got hurt.
Yeah, Dulcich got hurt in the game. I mean, it also sounds like Jeudy could have played. Like, he was legitimately close. So I think once Jeudy gets back, we'll know more, and they'll have a legitimate 3 wide receiver set between he, Mims, and Sutton.
I thought the Mims, that was concerning. He was at just a 27% snap share. He was buried behind, B. Johnson and Little Jordan and
Jordan Humphrey.
That was
Lil
one
Jordan
is
not Lil, by the way. He's huge.
No, he is not.
He's big Jordan. I thought that was a tight end.
Yeah. Guys, continuing the theme, Javonte Williams, 19 opportunities in this game, did not reach 10 fantasy points in the PPR. But I'm not going to take that as a negative. I thought the fact that he's out there handling 19 opportunities is a great sign. And Samaje Perine gives them a perfect third down back. Like Samaje, I call him a coach's pet running back. He just does everything right. He doesn't necessarily do it well, but he does it right. And that's going to get Samaje Perine snaps, Graham.
Yep, it will. And it will all season. This is going to be a backfield heavy offense. I'm expecting, Williams to continue to be like 15 carries, Samaje 8. And then, like you said, it'll be a split in terms of the passing down work. Obviously, we really didn't see any red zone usage because they didn't really move the ball super well. So that's still like kind of the one question I have here is who gets the goal line work. My lean is Javonte, which will obviously make him the better fantasy back. But yeah, Perine's going to be a thorn in his side all year.
Let's move on over to the Raiders. And I mean, talk about condensed. Hey, guys, Josh Jacobs, 22 opportunities in this game as the bell cow back. Did he reach 10 fantasy points, Tom? Your guess.
I'm going to say no.
No, he did not. Bad week for running backs, guys. Hello, Jakobi Meyers. All right, they signed him. They had a plan for him. This guy is one of the top 2 or 3 receivers on the slate. 10 targets, 9 catches, 81 yards, and 2 touchdowns, coinciding with Patrick Surtain shadowing Devontae Adams. Is Jakobi Meyers, Hebrew, a startable wide receiver 3?
I think so. I don't think we're going to see this kind of use, as you said. Surtain is, that's a unique matchup. They'll get it twice a year. Devontae Adams is probably going to be good for, 8 to 12 targets most weeks. He even got 9 targets this week, even in the tough matchup. So Myers' bigger issue is he took a big hit at the end of the game and suffered a concussion. So it looks like he might be out of commission against the Bills in week 2. So he's like one of those fringe waiver wire. He's like 55% owned in leagues. I definitely think he's worth adding. He kind of excels in the areas of the field where Jimmy Garoppolo has always excelled in that 5 to 15 yard range. And he's in the middle of the field. So I do think there's reason to believe his success will continue to carry over. But this isn't going to be the norm here with Devontae Adams. Still the clear number 1 target here.
Miami 36, the Chargers 34. The good news for me is I stacked this game in DFS. The bad news for me,
no,
I didn't use Tyreek as part of that stack.
Oh no!
Nonetheless, because I stacked this game and every other game was a dud, I still doubled my money. But nonetheless, let's start with Miami. In a week like this, okay, you're not surviving Tyreek Hill.
Nope.
If you got Tyreek, you probably lost, almost certainly, in my opinion, unless you had like Ayuk and McCaffrey. That was a rough go of it. I mean, Graham, I don't know what I need to say. Mike McDaniel's a wizard. I thought Tua played pretty freaking well. And remember, this is the defense that gave Tua fits last year, Graham. So credit to McDaniel, credit to Tua, and obviously Tyreek Hill's an all-time great.
He is. And Mike McDaniel deserves a lot of credit. So what the Chargers did last year is they took away the middle of the field. They made Tua throw to the boundaries, and they tried to get pressure. In this game, they opened up the middle of the field early. I mean, they were hitting Tyreek over the middle. They hit Waddle over the middle twice for big gains. And then they opened up the vertical game. I mean, Tyreek was just running past everybody. I'm writing Tyreek and Tua is up. I think right now, Tyreek, if you were redrafting, should be going Scott and I were talking about this. I think, Joe, you and I were talking about this too. Like if you're, doing projections, Tyreek has like an equal chance of finishing as the wide receiver 1 as Jefferson and Chase. Yeah. And no one was really drafting that way. I mean, especially in like,
I still thought he was the top 5 pick, but yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I had him there. I had him as my 3rd overall pick. Man, I mean, if you're redrafting this week, like I think you can make a case for Tyreek as wide receiver 1. And we got to move Tua up, man. Like he answered all the doubters.
He defense. Played extremely well. Yeah.
Outside of the pick, he had the bad red zone pick. It was a horrible decision on that ball. But man, I mean, after that, besides that, he was awesome in that game. So yeah, Tua, Tyreek up. And I got to say, Raheem Mostert looked good. Got pretty much all of the important backfield stuff with no Devin Achane. Achane, I'm not sure. Did we get word if he was like
healthy scratch?
He was
That
a healthy scratch.
Yep, he
Wow.
is in the doghouse.
Well, he had the shoulder injury, but man, he's
Salvan
tiny.
Ahmed got the first carry in this game, by the way.
But then he got like 3 more, right?
Yeah. On the flip side, was it? I mean, aside from the fact that Josh Kelly and Austin Eckler split carries, I don't know if this is going to be a Bijan Algier situation going forward, guys. But Eckler has been begging. As a matter of fact, I talked to him about it. He wants somebody who's going to rotate in with him. And Joshua Kelly looked freaking awesome in this game. He just didn't look as good as Eckler because, well, Eckler.
Yeah, he looked good going back to the preseason too. He busted off a long touchdown run in I think their second game. It was 70+ yards, and just a continuation of this. He's taken well to Kellen Moore's offense here. Right around, I think it was basically a 50-50 split here in a game that was a shootout. Chargers are going to play in a lot of shootouts, but if they get into some grinder games, there's a chance that maybe Kelly gets more touches than Austin Eckler in the future. So I thought that was at least notable that we had a 70-point game and Joshua Kelly was on the field for 39%, 39 of the snaps, 48% overall, and got 16 carries. So I'm not going to hit the panic button here with Austin Eckler. He was a first-round pick, but I think it's at least a situation to monitor here. It's not ideal if you're, the guy that you used a first-round pick on is right around a 50% snap share.
Mike Williams was evaluated for a concussion, but I think he came back.
He returned.
Yeah, he came in the game. He had a big catch that almost won the Chargers game for him. Real quick on Eckler, I kind of view it as an upgrade. Rashawn Slater and Corey Linsley are both healthy. I mean, this run game is going to be so much better this year. I don't think Eckler ever really was going to be the guy that we can expect to get 20 carries a game. He's always going to split touches. So, honestly, I think Chargers offensive line and their run game is going to be a lot better this year. Eckler's still going to get a lot of red zone work. There's going to be games where Kelly's going to vulture a touchdown and you're going to be pissed. But I mean, this is still Eckler, still the premier touchdown scorer.
By the way, Justin Herbert, we don't have our charted stats out for this game yet. We have a few, but not this one. I'm wondering what his ADOT was in this game. Just curious.
I was wondering the same thing.
I thought I saw something at halftime that it was like 6 or 7 yards, but that was
they just were running the ball so effectively. They didn't really have to throw it. So
I just want to go back to Tua, because this will obviously play, because whether you say something good or bad about Tua, it always plays on social media. Brett Whitefield is in my Discord DMs right now, absolutely raving about him, and it literally inspired him to write a weekly article. Brett's going to call it Brett Whitefield's game ball. And he's going to write, based on film and data, he's going to hand out a game ball every week. And this week it's going to Tua Tagovailoa. Brett is raving about him. Let me give you the quote from Brett. This is 5 minutes ago. I need to write a Tua article. Quote, he plays like he did yesterday all season, not talking statistics. He will be the MVP running away. Clinical performance. So good review from Brett Whitefield on Tua. Let's move on to Philadelphia at New England. Another one of those weird games with the elite quarterback playing in a condensed offense. The Eagles win this one 25-20 in a just very bizarre game. Kenny Gainwell was the bell cow back running away for the Eagles. Guys, Kenny Gainwell, he had 18 opportunities. He did cross 10 fantasy points, but just barely. Are you sensing a theme in this week? He's a usable player, though. I mean, with the drum beats, I was trying to ignore the drum beats. I'm still more in the Kaplan area. He does everything pretty well. He just doesn't have juice. But Rashad Penny's a healthy scratch. Graham, DeAndre Swift gets 2 touches in this game.
Yeah,
I thought it was a weird game.
Yeah, it was a weird game. Belichick had a great game plan. AJ Brown is pretty limited until the literal end of the game.
The weather was bad.
Yeah. I got to ask you, Joe. I mean, you're the Eagles guy here. The Swift usage was the most surprising thing, right? Okay, we heard, Rashad Penny's going to be healthy scratch hours before the game. And
I thought that meant.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All of us were like, Swift. I mean, that's the question. What was your read on Swift here?
So watching this game, I don't think the Eagles ever got into a rhythm. like ever. And last
one
year
carry.
they got into
Yeah.
rhythm so easily. I just think it was a weird game. And then the good news is, guys, Jalen Hurts threw the ball 33 times and 20 of the targets were directed at A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. So that's not changing.
Problem, Goddard got one, though. That's
and
another tight end that really struggled.
Romo did point out a couple of times where Goddard should have been targeted. It was in the second half. I don't know if you guys were watching that game. Romo pointed out a couple of times Goddard should have been targeted. And I think Bill just had kind of Jalen Hurts a little shook in that game. And it's just one of those things. And Jalen Hurts will probably be
good on defense, man.
Yeah, they are
and really good on defense.
I will tell you one other thing. I thought Bill O'Brien called an awesome game.
Yeah. Look at that. A competent offensive coordinator with even just kind of replacement level receivers. No Devontae Parker, Tyquan Thornton's hurt. Like doing it through Kendrick Bourne and Hunter Henry, and they move the ball. Look at that.
And like, Mac Jones, was there a game last year where he comes running to the sideline yelling at Patricia and Judge and whatever and said, wasn't it like, stop effing running it, it's not working?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? It wasn't working in this game, and Mac Jones threw the ball 54 times, and I thought looked pretty freaking good doing it.
Yeah, and he got Kendrick Bourne, Bill O'Brien got Kendrick Bourne and Hunter Henry involved. Those were two guys that had a lot of success with Mac Jones during his rookie season when he was at his best. And then Tweedledee and Tweedledum decided not to play those guys and target the Hunter Henry wasn't targeted in the red zone at all last year. So Bourne was in the lineup. He goes off for 2 touchdowns, and Hunter Henry's targeted in the end zone and converts a touchdown. Just like
both of these guys should be rostered, folks. Yeah, both of these guys should be rostered.
Dude, Bourne is like a wide receiver 3 in 14 team leagues. Like,
shout out to my boy Andrew Callahan, who on the Franchise Focus podcast said Kendrick Bourne and Hunter Henry. That's what he said. And, he called Stevenson last year. By the way, not freaking out about Ramondre. The Eagles' run defense is going to be a problem. Jordan Davis was a monster in this game. Jalen Carter was a monster in this game.
I know, the analytics and the numbers all say run game doesn't matter, and maybe run defense doesn't matter too much for winning games, but holy shit, Jordan Davis is unbelievable in the run. Yeah. He's unguardable. He's literally unguardable.
He made splash plays, which is what you want to see from a guy with his. Yeah. And by the way, Ramondre came into this game sick. He had a stomach bug. So it's understandable if he looks sluggish, but he still caught 6 passes.
He did his thing in the passing game again.
Yes, he did. He bailed us out again.
He always does.
LA and Seattle, talk about surprising result of the week. LA smokes the Seahawks 30-13. Stafford was really freaking good. Graham, I'm going to start with you with the backfield because I wish we had yelled this louder. I know that we can go back and find instances of us saying, hey, Kyren Williams is their third down back. Kyren Williams might be more than their third down back.
Yeah, he might.
15 for 52 and 2 touchdowns. He didn't have a reception. Cam Akers, 22 carries. Tell me Cam Akers has 22 carries in week 1. I'd be really happy. He has 22 carries and a touchdown and doesn't cross 10 PPR fantasy points.
Brutal.
What's your read here, man?
Brutal. I mean, this is so when we were drafting Kyren and I was saying he's a good late round pick, I was like, oh, he'll just play on passing downs and it'll be Cam as the early down guy. This is a split. Not just that.
You get him on our FFPC teams?
Yeah, we do have him on one of our teams. Kyren might be like the guy. And late in the game, when that game was like salted away, I mean, they're up multiple scores. It was Cam Akers getting the last grinding bit of carries. They're resting Kyren Williams. And Sean McVay was saying all offseason, like, Kyren's our guy. Like, he's saying Cam Akers is going to play a big role, but like he was hyping Kyren Williams in the same. You are right. I'm
looking at the game log. Holy crap! It would have been an 80-20 snap share split without these last couple drives for Akers. Holy crap! I didn't realize.
I was shocked, honestly, legitimately shocked at the usage. We got to also talk real quick. I got to kick at you guys about Van Jefferson. I mean, this kind of felt like a changing of the guard with this, Puka Nacua. Obviously, great game plan by McVay. Even better play by Stafford. If you're watching the game, the next couple days, Stafford was on fire and on fire on third downs too. I mean, what do you guys think about this receiver group until Kupp gets back?
I mean, Puka Nacua earned 15 targets from Matthew Stafford in his first game. I think that's
speaks volumes there. Yeah, I'm playing him. I'm playing Nakua. He's going to be obviously the big waiver wire guy this week.
Yeah.
And so is Kyron. They might have the two.
They
They
do.
might have
They're at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Running back and at wide receiver for me. We'll see what John does. But I think those two should be the guys to get, and they're. I think they're sub 10% owned. I mean, I know Nakua is, and I would
he's not
guess
owned.
Kyron Williams is sub 10% as well. So yeah.
I have Kyron in the Tom. I went 0 RB in our 14-team collegiate league, and Kyron was like my last pick. I am so fired up about that. Like, I took some Graham advice, and I know our boy Josh Moyer is running to the waiver wire this morning to check out Kyron Williams. He's gonna say,
well, he was already doing it to me because I have Nakua, I believe, in that league.
Yeah, you picked him up this morning.
I picked him up before the game, and so we got the Los Angeles Rams covered.
Yeah, we each have that covered. Bad game for the Seahawks. Against the defense that has Aaron Donald and not a whole lot else. What do you guys see here?
You know what? I don't, I do the ATS picks. I'm freaking kicking my ass for whatever reason. Just like Sean McVay absolutely owns Soul. Even last year when his teams were, just completely decimated at the end of last year. They both, they tight games, covered both of them. He's covered 6 straight games in this matchup. It was like, I'm just kicking myself that I didn't do enough studying and or forgot that fact. And it was just a complete demolition. And Seattle, the 2 injuries to watch was at tackle. They lost both their Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas. It doesn't sound like they're very serious injuries, but then again, it's Pete Carroll talking, so they might be done for the season. By the time you listen to this podcast.
Kenneth Walker was bell cow usage guy. 17 opportunities to just 3 for Charbonnet. What did Kenneth Walker do with that? 10.7 fantasy points. Are you sensing a theme? You should have throughout this podcast. Let's go to Sunday night, and I don't even know what to do with this game.
Yeah, we can go through this one quick.
If you were to tell me the Cowboys were going to win this game 40-0, and you would get like 4 points out of Dak Prescott.
Just a brutal week, dude. Good Lord.
Just Daniel Jones was awful. That Cowboy defense is going to be a problem. The best news is that Darren Waller is apparently healthy. 3 for 36. He led them in.
He did say there was some stuff after the game though. He's concerned about it. It's the same hamstring that was giving him issues with Las Vegas. There's some comments he made after the game. He says he has a bigger team helping him manage it, but if somebody is writing up that player, you might want to look at it.
Tom, link me to that tweet. I put him as a watch. I'll put it in there.
That's I just saw it floating around this morning. Yeah, it's out there. It's a tweet with him with like his shirt off. He's got like a little suit jacket on.
Tony Pollard was bell cow usage and actually came through with that bell cow usage because he scored 2 touchdowns. I don't think Dak looked great. He didn't need to. I mean, I don't know what else.
Yeah,
Joe, you said this to me like 3 years ago, and it's just stuck with me. And it made my life a lot easier when thinking about the Cowboys. You're like, Dak Prescott's Kirk Cousins. And I was like, oh, okay, that's perfect. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
That's literally, he's the same exact guy. He's a pocket passer who can make the plays. But there's gonna be times where you're left scratching your head.
Yeah.
Obviously, this game got out of hand.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter this week. Yeah. I gotta say real quick on Pollard before we get out of here. This is the exact type of usage you wanted to see. Exact type. I mean, last year we saw Zeke at all the goal line red zone work, and I was noting that even if we give like Pollard like a quarter of the red zone work, it would take him from like a back end RB1 to a front end one. That's what he's going to be this year. I mean, this is stellar. All the red zone work, get a bunch of early down work. Rico Dowdle mixes in, and they're going to be in obviously a ton of more close games. But guys, this Cowboys defense is the best in the NFL. Their team speed is insane. Micah Parsons is unguardable.
I knew they were going to.
They're going to be in so many good game scripts.
Yeah, for Pollard, exactly. And
They are
you
going to be in
might have to
so many
downgrade
good game scripts.
You might have to downgrade Dak and CeeDee Lamb a bit. I mean, now look, I think this was a uniquely bad matchup for the Giants because they were just going after Evan Neal. I mean, Evan Neal was moving around out there like a big piece of fish. I mean, like I'll never stop doing that. So that
I knew
happened.
it was coming, Joe.
My our offensive line coach when I was playing football, offensive line coach, his name was Coach Jones, a big guy. I mean, he was an offensive line coach, and I played tight end, so obviously you work in over there, and then he told our right guard one day that he was moving around like a piece of fish, and like, I just I use that now when whenever an offensive lineman's really struggling, I say he's moving around out there like a big piece of fish. And
I don't know if anybody could have guarded Micah Parsons last night. His hair.
Oh no, but
yeah.
I mean, Evan Neal, like I just said, week 1, uniquely bad matchup for a guy who had a really rough season last year. So.
Yep.
Not a whole lot to glean from this. The Giants will be better than that, for sure. But anyway, guys, thank you for joining us for the first edition of the Market Report podcast here at fantasypoints.com. We'll be with you every Monday. We'll get this out probably around lunchtime, and then the article will go up a little bit later in the day. Thanks, everybody, for listening. For Graham and Tom, I'm Joe. Tom and I will be with you tomorrow to break down the waiver wire.